Welcome to the Magic Lighthouse Podcast. For those of us who are aware that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, the Magic Lighthouse is your mystical pit stop, your spiritual tune-up, your place to pause, reflect, and realign with the next phase of our journey. Join me, Violet Contz, on this adventure to harmonize and amplify the light within ourselves and each other as we raise the consciousness of the planet, one conversation at a time. Thank you for being here and sharing your light with us. Enjoy. Hey. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Magic Lighthouse. And today I have with me renowned chiropractor, Dr. Rodney Ruge. He also happens to be my stepdad, and he's been in my life since I was 12 years old, around that age, and he is one of the most pivotal human beings in my life. He showed me my first spiritual awakening books, personal development books, and in a lot of ways he was an answer to some prayers that I had, just sitting up late at night wondering, what is the purpose of the universe? What is the purpose of my life here? Why? Just tormented by these thoughts of what's my purpose here? And then he's like, here you go. Here are some books. Check them out. So that's a little bit of a context. He's a gifted healer. He has literally, like with Gus, my husband, in the previous episode, he's worked miracles on him with his back and his whole system. And yeah, I'm just really honored to have this person in my life and to have Rodney Ruge, Dr. Ruge, on this podcast. So there you go. Was that a good introduction for you?
That was amazing.
See,
what an awesome acknowledgement. And I really got the acknowledgement, and I got the love, and I really appreciate that awesome acknowledgement. I've never heard that before from you, so that was really refreshing. And and wow, right? So yeah. Why are we here, Violet?
Yeah, well, I was just introducing you, so thank you for thanks for being here. And we're here to have a conversation that is intended to make a difference. And if you're on the YouTube version, we have a background, and it keeps going in and out. So
my head's like a floating planet out there.
I could always take the background off too, but that's okay. So before we dive into the interview, before we dive into the conversation, I want to just take a minute to get grounded and centered together. You know, us and you who are listening with us, you are part of this conversation, and your listening actually is shaping this conversation, since time doesn't exist and we're all, multidimensional beings. Anyways, so let's take a moment, and if it's safe for you, you're not driving, if you're driving, just be present and be with us. But if you're in a place where you can sit comfortably, maybe sit back, close your eyes. If you want to sit back and close your eyes, you're more than welcome to. And just take a deep breath. And hold that breath at the top. And let it out with a sigh. Take another deep breath in. And hold it at the top. And let it out. Now, on this next deep breath in, think of something that you're grateful for. As you hold it at the top, visualize that gratitude expanding out. And then as you release your breath, see the light coming from that gratitude, touching every soul surrounding you within a mile radius. Take another deep breath in and see that light amplify. Now reaching 100-mile radius as you let your breath out. And with this third and final deep breath together, Visualize the light of gratitude expanding out, covering and blanketing over the entire earth. And as you release that final breath, get present to the room. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Look around you as you open your eyes. And get settled and reset for a conversation that's here to make a difference. That's the intention, at least. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being here, Dr. Ruge.
It's great to be here.
Okay, so
Yeah,
jumping into this, you're a chiropractor, you're a chiropractor, and you do a lot of other things too. Why don't you share with us about something that you're excited about?
Oh, okay. Well, just to add to the way you started, like I draw from a lot of things in my life that, whether they're exciting or not, they feed me. They feed my soul. If it's surfing, if it's playing music, since whatever, age 8 or 3rd grade. If it's personal growth and development, I get excited quite easily when it's the stuff that I'm excited about. If I'm interested, I could do that stuff forever. And I mean, I've been known to surf for hours, play the piano for hours, and so on at a time because I get lost in it. In fact, I was speaking to your husband about that last night, and he brought something up interesting about being addicted to the zone.
Mm-hmm.
But it was in the context of addiction, so it was not like the way I thought he meant it, because I was like, oh yeah, I could get into the zone for hours. And I think he was talking about addiction in this context of sort of losing yourself, and I had it in a context of reconnecting to source, to reconnecting to my true self, my higher self, my best version of myself. And it's interesting because you can have that I can have that as a surfer, I can have that as a musician, I can have that as somebody who loves anatomy, the human body, the nervous system, the impact that everything in our environment can and does have on not just nervous system function or your physiology, but who you are as a person and how you show up in life, and what I mean and what I'm discovering. And this is the answer to your question. What I'm really excited about right now is the discovery at my very young age of 55 years old, of like really getting curious about people. And I'm discovering that my dreams, they don't really live outside of me unless I share them with other people. And if I don't get the communication to land on the other side of the gap, so to speak, then it's like a fantasy in my head. But if I can share an idea, a concept, a vision, or whatever in a way that moves and inspires somebody else, and now they're the one calling me, or they're the one reaching out to me, or the next time I see them, they say, hey, how's that going? Whatever that is, writing a book, or whatever the next project is, then I know that I've sort of struck a vein. And so that's what I'm really most excited about right now, is to really discover what it means to really connect with people that way. And I've noticed that it takes a lot of being quiet and just being with people, or asking a question and not having an answer in mind when I'm being with that person, so that they can just say what that looks like to them. Because it's amazing how the world occurs differently to every single person. on the planet. You and I experience the exact same thing in completely different ways. And if I'm not listening, I'm going to potentially miss out on the one way that could have made the whole difference for me, and then maybe through me to other people who I might share that with. And that's really why I'm here today, is everything that I have to share I've gotten from somebody else. There's nothing good, and this is just part of my philosophy, I guess. There's nothing good that comes to us in life that doesn't come through other people. And so when you're grateful for the things and the stuff and the circumstances of your life, you really have people to thank. So that's what I'm excited about right now. It's just really discovering, like, what does the world look like through the eyes of all those other people? It's not always the way I look at it.
Right? Yeah, there's as many perspectives on the planet as there are people, and more, because our perspectives are also able to change and shift.
Yeah, great. Awesome.
Yeah. So what's a project that you're currently working on? One of your projects.
It's funny, because in what side of what I just shared, the discovery of all that, there's the desire, the wanting. I want to write a book. I want to launch a video, a blog, or a podcast. I want to impact the world, and so the desire is there. And then I run up against whatever thoughts, ideas, emotions. Usually it's just a bunch of stuff from the past that's sort of left a mark. And as much as I may want or desire some form of self-expression or to achieve some goal, a lot of times I'm so busy listening to this story or noise from the past that they're not coming into fruition. And as I said, when I get into communication with people, such as yourself, and we start kicking an idea around, and the next thing you know, we're making a recording, we're taking some action that would not have necessarily happened if we hadn't got into that conversation. Mm-hmm. And as I said, it's kind of a new area for me. I'm discovering a juiciness in life, which is interesting, because one of my pet projects that I've been sort of hiding out about is called Life in the Garden, and that's the name of the video blogging project. And it really has to do with what if we took on our lives the way a gardener would take on their plot in life. You have all these plots. You're growing tomatoes here, you're growing your cucumbers over there. You grow stuff you would want, and a lot of us are growing things
that
we don't really want, right? Like, wait, why am I doing that? And or how did I get here?
Right, and you can also say that we are all gardeners. It's just a matter of what kind of gardener are you, and are you good at being a gardener?
Well, there's a phrase that when you hear it, you'll say, "Oh yeah, I've heard that before," and it's called tending the garden. So the gardener is the person who tends the garden. It's a funny word. Tend is like there's tendency. Like I have certain tendencies, and so my habits are going to produce the fruits. And I go and I look at what's growing in the garden. I'm like, oh, that's not what I wanted. That would be like not really tending, but just having the tendencies, the habits produce the stuff. So it's sort of like living unconsciously. I think it's what a lot of people refer to as being woke, even if they may not actually be spiritually awakened, right? They have woke ideas. They heard it from somebody that, hey, that's a great idea. And as you were saying, everybody's got their own perspectives. The real question is, well, how do you put that idea to work in your life? And that doesn't necessarily look like the way I put it to work in my life. And we could get it caught up in splitting hairs about, oh, you're doing it right or doing it wrong, or I'm doing it right, I'm doing it wrong. Or we could just have some appreciation for the infinitude of interpretations that are possible. And I don't really believe that there's an infinity of of interpretations. As you said, there's as many points of views as there are people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a finite number. But like where I was getting stuck, I had a mentor from years ago, and he would say, well, I don't know what it's going to take. It might take one try. It might take, 87 tries, but, it might only take 3 or 4, to quote unquote get it right, or to discover something like, oh, that's so easy. I didn't realize what I thought was impossible or hard to achieve could be had so quickly, just because somebody opened their mouth and said, hey, let's do that.
Yeah.
Or did you ever think of this? And like, oh, wow, that just like you just handed me the key. And that's what's available in conversation, getting out of your head, so to speak, and into the bigger mind that's at work here. There's a collective of people, there's a collective in your community, your family, that when you realize and recognize the resource that's there, it could just be that 1 or 2 iterations away, and all of a sudden you've got the life of your dreams. It wasn't a million, efforts, or $1 million or a million whatevers, it's really just a matter of getting started, initiating, getting the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And then also kind of being available and open to when the ball curves left, curves right, or some other influence shows up, and it's like, oh, okay, how do we account for that? Versus trying to control it or stop it. No, it's supposed to go this way. Like, well, is it really?
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of, that's part of the new excitement for me, is the discovery of questioning myself. Like I come to a conclusion, and then for my new habit that I'm beginning to develop is when I come to a conclusion so quickly or abruptly, especially if it's familiar territory or a familiar thing, to stop and say, wait a second, is it really? Is that really what it is? Is that person really the way that my judgment told me they are? Oh, that person's just this or that or the other. Oh, they're just angry, or they're, there's something going on over there. They have baggage. Everybody's got baggage, right? But it's an interesting place to find myself being able to give that up in order to be able to discover who the person really is. And then when you do, to say, well, wait, is that who they really are? Not like we're going to just keep going forever.
But is that
and
who they really
we
are?
never have an answer to a question.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I've been around for 55 years. A lot of things I've seen and done. I tend to look at things through the eyes of a chiropractor, a surfer, a musician, a father, a son, a brother, etc. And so,
Grandfather now.
Thank you. That's awesome. And each of those things, if I'm not paying attention or if I'm not responsible for it, adds a little bit of a flavor or a spice or even a blind spot that kind of has things seem the way they do, has my experience go a particular way. And the discovery that I'm inviting everybody to join us in here is the discovery of, well, if I set that aside, what becomes available? Maybe that blind spot goes away and I see the thing that I've been wanting, and it's like it's been there the whole time. On the other hand, I can give up an interpretation, an evaluation, a judgment about myself or about a situation or about life, and then have a whole new world arise in the conversation and in my vision. I'll be able to see things that wouldn't have ever occurred to me before. It's like I'm literally vibrating on a whole different level. Now I said literally, so that's a kind of a funny thing. Well, how do you measure that, right? And part of it is a feeling. Like, yes, that feels good. I think that's kind of important. It's not as important as kind of checking
Mm-hmm.
to see and validating. It's kind of like that saying of trust but verify.
Yep.
You know, politics and all that. And, you know, it's nice to go off of a feeling, but you kind of want to verify. Like if you have a good feeling, you might want to stick around and see if that good feeling lasts. And that's not necessarily the last test, excuse me, the litmus test. Because when you go the other way, you might have a bad feeling. And well, maybe you just had a bad burrito. Maybe you just had a bad mood. Maybe you just didn't get enough sleep last night, or take your vitamins or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So our feelings are not necessarily a test for reality that we can rely on, but it is one way that we can kind of take note of where we are and if we're living in alignment or
and
if
to tune
we're
in. You know, it's there for a reason. It's not to be ignored.
Yeah.
We want to be responsible for the design of the human being.
Yeah.
You know, we're not just a bunch of parts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, I got ears, I got a nose and eyes, and I can see and smell and taste and touch and all this stuff. But what really makes you human is what I call the sixth sense. And I'm not talking about ESP. I'm talking about the ability to make sense, to put those five senses together in a way that things kind of add up. That when you share that with another human being in particular, through their imagination, they can get a sense of what those five senses would be like for them. And that's how powerful and amazing the human mind is you can literally close your eyes and listen to somebody telling a story, and you will create a whole world that you can sort of create, imagine, and project onto the screen of your mind. And I guess that's what a lot of people would call, you know, I don't know, some people call it the third eye, or the eye of the eye. What's the other word or phrase they use? The mind's eye.
Yeah.
You know, and I suggest that you have a mind's ear and you have a mind's, you know, whatever, all these different senses. It's kind of hard to say you have a mind's taste, but you can imagine, you know, mom's, you know, that awesome meal she always fixes for your birthday or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just imagining that, your taste buds, and you start salivating, and it's like, wait a second. Is that any less real than sitting down at mom's dinner table and putting the food in your mouth? Because it's literally just the imagination. And I don't think it's Pavlovian, you know, like the Pavlov's dog where you ring a bell and dog salivates because he's always gets fed after the sound of the bell, right? And so, like, you think about it, is that like the sound of the bell ringing? Or are you actually creating something? So I can observe an actual bell ringing. I can imagine the sound of a bell ringing. And I can have the exact same response. And one, like the Pavlov's dog, is a trained response. So somebody bigger or somebody smarter than the dog sets up an experiment. And the dog may be unaware that the experiment is going on. Mm-hmm. And so the observer, the scientist, the experimenter, imposes the certain scenario, and the dog is just, you know, none the wiser, but nonetheless is changed. And there's a few interesting things that come out of that. One is you can observe a physiological response in the dog, not from the actual food or even food in his mouth. Like, why would you produce saliva if you weren't going to eat food, right? That's the way the body is designed, right? But beyond the design of the body, there's an intelligence at work that can predict and create. And even though a dog, we don't necessarily think of dogs as being creative like an artist, musician or whatever. Those are what we might think of.
I
as
mean,
being
there are
human.
some dogs that can do some pretty amazing
That's
art.
that's true, and they can also sing and make weird noises like they're talking or singing. And
Right.
and what I'm talking about is like what makes us unique as human beings is that creative intelligence. Even if you don't consider yourself to be a creative individual, you don't have to be an artist or a musician to have an imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what real creation is. It's just that the artist takes the additional steps of putting the hand to the brush and the brush to the paint and the paint to the canvas and goes through a process, but you're no less creative, anyone, in just thinking or imagining. As I said, if you close your eyes and listen to somebody reading a storybook, you cannot stop it. The imagination is activated.
Yes.
The impulse to create is already there. It's always there, and it's always and already perfect. And this is the thing that a lot of people, I think, are unfamiliar with, or if they ever were familiar, they lost track of it. Paint inside the lines, drive in between the lines, don't go out of bounds. And that imagination gets lost through a similar Pavlovian type of conditioning and training where light turns red, light turns green, there's an automatic response that we're not necessarily conscious of, that we're still creating.
Mm-hmm.
Like stepping on that gas pedal or turning the steering wheel is an act of creation. And we're just thinking, oh, I'm just going from point A to point B. I'm just going to work. Oh, I'm just turning into the grocery store.
Yeah.
Like stay between the lines. Stay between the lines versus, wait a second. This already always creativity and imagination and perfection that we reside in all the time is so easily obscured by all of the impressions of the world influencing us. Teachers, parents, peers,
Yeah.
life experiences.
Let me interrupt you for just 1 second.
Please.
So this is kind of like a preview of Life in the Garden, of all the kinds of conversations and thoughts that you're having.
Yeah,
So,
this is a pretty typical day at the office.
Yeah, so
for some of my patients anyway.
So let's shift gears, because I know we can keep going, and it would be very interesting, and you have a lot of really cool insights, like tend and tendency, like wow, tendencies are like habits, and making all these connections. And I'm really excited to listen to your podcast and watch your video blogs. And I actually have seen your video. I saw your video blog that you filmed in the decompression room. I forget the exact. I think it might have. I don't remember the exact topic, but I remember thinking, wow, this is really awesome, and I like hearing just your insights and thoughts about life. And you're a human design manifester. So your purpose here on this planet, according to this modality, is you're here to create. And it's funny that you're talking about creating, right? You're here to create. You're here to manifest. You're here to create ideas and just keep creating and have other people support you in creating these ideas, or you yourself fulfilling on them. But you oftentimes start creating and then don't finish creating one thing because you have so many things that you're creating. So it really helps to have people around you supporting you and creating and fulfilling on what you're creating. So
I got that.
Back to we have a few minutes left on the podcast here. I want to start wrapping up here, and just I want to get an idea of how did you get started with the idea of Life in the Garden? Like you mentioned, it's just kind of like a day in the office.
It's probably a process over 20 years or more. It's an analogy that I would use with patients to sort of get them out of a particular way of looking at something. And that's the beauty of analogies, right? Is X is not exactly like Y.
Yeah.
But it's very similar. And if I paint a picture of them standing in a garden of their life, and one plot might be, their career or their health or their finances and so on. There's all these different areas that people regularly produce things in the garden of their lives.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily tend to them the way a responsible gardener would. Like every time I go out into the garden, if it's tomatoes or whatever, they're different. I'm learning different things from the tomato plant than I'm learning from growing beans or growing cucumbers. They have different needs. They have different timing. There's a frequency and a different pattern that if I don't really pay attention, if I just treat them all the same, or go out and just water, some of them are going to do okay, some are going to do great, and some are going to do horrible, and I'll never know why. So there's always this ever-present opportunity to dig deeper, to get more related, to uncover and discover the finer nuances in any area of your life that's important to you. So if it's relationships or finances, if it's your health, and you're having challenges, how much time and energy are you putting into the tending of that garden or that plot within the garden? And the thing that's eluding you, as we sort of were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, they're like right under our noses. We've created blind spots and we maintain this blind spot unconsciously. And on the other side, we know things that aren't necessarily true. And in fact, that might actually be a version of a blind spot, is blocking and obscuring things from our view. But once we say, you know what, I'm going to really take this on. I'm going to become the very best gardener that I can. I'm going to learn everything that I can. And I'm committing myself to excellence in this area. And you can do it in all areas, but, start with one and notice what arises naturally is your curiosity. And when you follow it, you develop an intimacy. You reveal, as the universe reveals things to you, the finer nuances that take you to the next level. And actually has things go smoother, easier. You can produce more, greater results with less effort. You can discover things about yourselves, and other people that are latent or hidden resources and talents and capacities and abilities. And you can be that kind of a person for other people that reveals those things, or has those people reveal those things to themselves. What I'm discovering in the form of true leadership, where people get to show up as the powerful leaders that they already are, but maybe only because this amazing person showed up to say, hey, I want to have that conversation. I'm ready now. I'm ready to take it to the next level. And sometimes we know that means we need to let things go. It's like pruning the plants. It's like picking the bugs off or whatever. Sometimes we're bringing things to the garden, like the fertilizer, the water, and we're adding things that we trust and we know this plant is going to take what it needs. But now that I've created an environment, like this more perfect environment, it's going to do better, as am I. And we can always take our lives to the next level just by being patient and noticing and being willing to notice. Really listen for the finer detail, the essence of what something or somebody really is.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
really like that. I like the analogy of the garden and adding the fertilizer, adding the resources, adding the time, the energy. I can think of areas of my life where I'm not really tending to them. I'm kind of just letting them go automatically and then wondering why something's not happening the way I wanted to. Like, okay, because
Where'd
I'm
these
not
weeds come
actually,
from?
exactly, I'm not actually tending to them, and then letting things go, pruning, like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How hard is it for us to let things go, especially as a Western culture?
Yeah,
We like to hoard, we like to, if it's not physical objects, maybe it's like hoarding friends or hoarding money or hoarding
right.
files on our hard drives. Like,
I
why
think
can't I
that's,
delete that file from 20 years
to
ago? I
me,
don't
that's
know.
the truest form of addiction, like is hanging on to something. Addiction in the sense that we were talking about earlier with your husband, Gus.
Yeah.
That addiction is a destructive thing. And it's not that you wouldn't want to have some, at least once in a while, some destructive activity. Like in the garden, I've got to tear some stuff up, dig out some roots and whatever.
Yeah, sometimes you got to make it ugly before you got to.
And you got to
replant
clear the land in order to build. So
Yeah.
destruction is not necessarily a bad thing, but in the process of creation, where does that fit in, and what are all of the so like you said, resources or components? What are the different pieces? As I'm going through the garden, what all needs to happen, and am I being responsible for tending to the needs of the garden, as I know and trust that the garden is going to supply me with all of my needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as I said, I think that's one of the things that's kind of missing, is that faith and trust in life, or in whatever that section of the garden is. Like, is this thing really going to produce?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's the faith of that the garden is going to grow if I give it everything it needs. Like, the last thing you need is, dirt, you need sunshine, you need nutrients,
water,
you need the seeds, you need water. All right, I guess the final thing you need is faith that it's actually going to take.
It's all going to take
harvest, and
I can get better. I can.
And you might have challenges along the way. Like, you might get some bugs, you might get some molds, you might get some of this and that, and you have to adjust and to, reassess and.
Well, we've all
maybe get some coaching from other gardeners.
Right. Versus sometimes what we do, like I was going to say, we've all quit on something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm no good at this, and it's like,
get your first bad crop. And
are you really no good at that? I mean, there's that question again. Am I really no good? Like, no good, like zero? Of course not. I always have potential. Am I willing to recognize that in myself? Am I willing to recognize that in other people? And am I willing to show up like the gardener and say, oh, I got to make sure the fertilizer, the water, the sunshine, the climate, the whatever, the pH, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And what else is there for me to learn about? Like, what pH?
Sounds like there's so much to do to take care of a garden.
Oh my God.
Why bother?
But like I said earlier, and this is exciting, is the more you know and apply, the more you realize how many more resources you have available to you. And you also get it down to a science, quote unquote, where it's almost like a push of a button. You know exactly what needs to happen and in its timing. You say, it's not the time of the year to plant those seeds right now. It's not the time of year to do the pruning or to do the whatever. And when it is, you know when to do it. And now you're getting maximum yield for the same amount of effort or less.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why was I thinking this was more work? It's like this is one of the concepts that I really love to share with people, is the price of admission to the life of your dreams. You have to pay attention. And when I say pay and I pause and people go, oh, and you can feel that punch in the stomach.
I have to pay money.
It's going to cost me. It's like, well, if you want to go to a concert or you want to go to a movie, you pay the ticket. You don't know if it's going to be a good game or a good movie. Mm-hmm. You're like trusting, like, okay, well, it's got this person in it and it's had this person directing it, and or we've been to one of their concerts before and it was amazing. This is going to be awesome, but you don't know until you're there. And the fact is, this is what I mean. Like live music, there's an interaction between the performer and the audience is a part of the creation of the moment. It should be obvious.
Yep.
When you go to a movie theater
Well, I don't
and
think
it's
it
all
is
like
obvious for everybody.
prepackaged, well,
Yeah.
when we talk about it, when we point to it, that's
Right.
kind of what makes it obvious a lot of times.
Yes.
But if you compare that to like going to a movie and it's all prepackaged and prefabricated and like every single person's going to have the same viewing experience, right? But that doesn't mean they have the same experience.
Yeah, more or less.
What they see on the screen, what they hear through the Dolby whatever sound system is going to be 99.999. Everybody's going to get the exact same thing. It's a rubber stamp.
Right.
Okay.
Versus a live performance, which
yes, where you're actually interacting, and obviously your interaction in the front row would be a lot different than your interaction from the nosebleeds, right? Because you here in the front row, you can see their face. They can look right in your eyes and so forth, right? And they might have a little moment with you, like interacting, like, hey, look at you.
Yeah.
The nod of the head or the smile or the whatever.
Like,
come
oh
on
my
up on
gosh,
stage.
Jimi Hendrix looked at me.
He looked at me. And I don't think it's any less creative in any area of life, whether you're driving down the street or you're, paying a parking ticket, or you're, having a conversation with your mom on the phone or on Skype or something, as an act of creation.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said about, if I was aware of that, would I approach it differently? Would I honor not just my mom, but the interaction? Like, this is an opportunity to create something in life.
To attend to that part of your garden.
Yeah, to really tend, like care, like there's another version of tend, like tender, like tend tenderly. And like it's a funny word too, tender, like is to pay. Like when I tender some cash.
You should call this not the life in the garden, but just tend.
Tend to your shit. Tend to the garden. And it's like, because the funny thing, what is fertilizer and what does it produce on the other end? You're like, these tomatoes are so delicious.
Well, guess where that came from.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
Hey, the best stuff always grows right where the cow left his little prize.
The cow pie.
In the garden. In the pasture. Whatever.
That's too funny. I love it. I love all the different. I can't wait to see like a map of all of like. I can imagine like the pillars of the life of the garden, like what all the areas of your life that make up your garden, like family, friendships, food, exercise, health.
Well, when I've worked with people, I'll have them create that. Like, well, okay, let's like draw like a fictitious garden, like an overhead view. And you go, over here's my career, and over here's my family, and over here's my health. And it's like, great. And like, how much space do you want, and what do you want it to look like? And then it's no different than if you went in your backyard.
Yeah.
Like, how much space do I need for that? And where would be the best place for the amount of sun I need? And
that's a great idea.
Do I need to treat the soil with anything, or is it good to go?
What is the process of that? Can we leave the listeners with a little life in the garden exercise they can do to take into this new year, 2021. Right now we're December 29th.
I love that.
And,
it's a perfect way to set up the new year.
Even if you listen to this and it's a year from this date, like you can still use this exercise. Absolutely. But just to, ring in the new year, like what, in a nutshell, how do we do this exercise? This is the homework for you guys. This is our first time we're giving you homework as listeners. And I want to hear how this assignment goes for you, and leave a review, leave a comment, and let us know.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I would suggest the first thing is like to recognize it's really only about 3 to 5 things, because if you're like me, or especially like I used to be, I'll create a million things, right? And I'll say things like, oh, I got a million things to do. No, I have 12. Okay.
You have 2 things to do today. Like, come
on. And I create this mountain.
And then you do a million things
out of something
that's
not even a molehill.
You create a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, it's not even a molehill.
It's just like a little pebble.
But it's like, when I've worked with people in the past and about, if we're doing life coaching or we're doing whatever, we started listing all these things. And I go, okay, great. Now prioritize them. what's the most important? Next. Okay, and here's what's going to happen. Is there's going to be things on your list that you say are important, but they're not in the top 3 to 5. What that means is the chances that you spend any amount of time on that at all is next to 0. It's a statistical fact. And besides that, I think Warren Buffett said something just like this. So if you don't believe me, put your faith in Warren Buffett. Okay, he's a pretty smart guy. His was something like write a list of the 20 things and chop it in half again. And it was like, oh, that's the same as my formula. Get it down to 5 things. Devote your life. That's what he says is do not spend. He says take that last 15 items. Don't throw them in the trash. Burn them.
So these are all the things that are important to you. He says to
burn that part of the list and never look at it again. And I can hear the people with the look of horror and the, oh my God, it's really important. Is it really? And I'm going to suggest, how much time have you spent on that this week? If it's really important. How much time this year have you spent on that? How much have you spent in the last 10 years? Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, I haven't really.
So I should burn the fitness category on my list. Got it. Never to do fitness ever again.
Well,
thank you, Dr. Ruge. We are concluding.
This is really great. This is really great because what happens is when you really get it narrowed down, laser focused like that, all of a sudden you find you do have time or interest or motivation and desire that you were burying and hiding, and like I created a blind spot for myself where that's not really that important. Or it's not important enough. But then when you readjust and recalibrate, and this is like the chiropractor talking now, when you get things to line up, it gets really simple really fast. It gets really clean and clear. And you realize, oh my God, I have so much time on my hands. Now what am I going to do?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you tidy up your house. Well, for me, when I have a clean and tidied up room or house, it gives me the freedom to actually create new things, to work on crafts, to work on making cards, to do to do other things rather than think about, okay, I got to move that there, I got to move that there, I got to clean, I got to sweep, got to do this, and then So once I'm like have everything in alignment, then I'm like, okay, finally I can just rest and just do something else because the house. That's why I love going to hotels because they're already clean. You don't have to do anything. When you first get in there, and they're like, all right, then I'm going to go on an adventure. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to come back. I'm going to chill.
Yeah.
So if I just lived
at
a hotel,
it's like almost a shock the second time you go in the room. Right? The first time is all pristine.
Oh crap!
After you leave and come back, you're like, oh, why is it? Oh, that's my stuff.
Exactly. So the assignment is write out a list of 20 things, 12 things that you love
you do
or that are important to you.
Warren Buffett method. I would say
what's the life
just write a list of what are the things that are really the most important to you. They're usually right there. The first 3 to 5 things, don't be surprised, may not actually end up on your list. Okay, but
what's step 2?
If I say what's important to you, there's like what's important right now.
Right.
And then if we said, okay, wave a magic wand, that's handled. It's perfect. Everything that needed to happen has already happened. What's there for you now? You'll start to notice that things start to come up to the surface when you clear some of that stuff off. That's what I was kind of pointing to. When you get things lined up, or you organize your mind, body, soul, spirit, etc., with your values, you start to discover the resources you have. We have way more energy. We apparently have way more time than we thought we had, and we stop wasting time and energy on things that are not as important anymore. That's why I really liked Warren Buffett's thing about, burn that and never look at it again. It still shocks me.
Yeah.
When I look at the list of 20, because I didn't actually burn it and not look at it again, I keep looking back like, wait, maybe it is important. Or I think it is. I say it is, but my actions say otherwise.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think I'm pretty grounded in the step 1. So is there a step 2, or is that it? Is that it? You just get get your priorities.
We just wanted to get people started on it, just kind of meditate on what's important to you and then look at that list. Write that list and look at it. You don't be surprised if you start rearranging things, say, no, this is more important than that. But I would suggest to reverse engineer this. You could just say, okay, what do I spend my time on?
What do I spend my time on?
Where do I spend all my time? And then keep looking back at your list of 20 things, and you'll notice
Instagram.
There's really about there's like 3 to 5 areas or plots in the garden that you spend all your time and energy. 3 to 5 areas where 99.9, and then that 1% is you just thinking or fantasizing about the other, 15.
Yeah. It's funny. Just a quick example of like where I spend a lot of my time, and then I say that I don't have time for doing Reiki on myself every day. So as a Reiki
so you do Reiki on
practitioner,
other people
I'll do Reiki
time.
on other people.
Right.
And then, part of being a Reiki healer is it's a good idea for me to do Reiki on myself every day, to re-ground myself, recenter myself, build my relationship to Reiki. And I say, I don't have the time. Oh, the baby. Oh, I had to cook. Right. And then what I've been doing lately is just like, as I'm feeding like my child, breastfeeding, instead of scrolling through Instagram, I'll just start doing a few positions of Reiki on myself, like on my head, my shoulders. And then it's like, oh my goodness, like I can use the times that I'm feeding him, or even when he's napping, I get a nice long session in. I'll just lay in bed next to him and I'll just do a whole session on myself. And it's like, oh my gosh, like just when I stop mindlessly scrolling on this computer device that's like brainwashing me, and then I actually focus on doing something for myself, tending to my garden, tending to my body, my energy, and I come out of it so much more refreshed and grounded and just clear. And it's almost like the energy, it's almost like when I do a Reiki session for myself, like the universe around me reorganizes, and
it does.
Things that weren't working before
absolutely does.
Are like working now. And like people that I thought were mad at me are like really sweet and nice, and I'm like, wait, I thought there was something weird, but I guess not. Okay, cool. So it's just,
I've had that same experience.
Interesting how things that feel stuck before after a session with myself doing Reiki, it's like, oh, that works out great now. So
do they sometimes call it an alignment, like a Reiki alignment or something? I think I've heard
there's
that
a Reiki attunement. Attunement.
Well, I think attune it's like to tune in as a lineup. So it's pretty
same
much,
concept.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think, like that exercise, writing this stuff down is actually a form of an alignment, because, it's like, well, how often do I look at what's really important and my priorities and how I spend my time? It's like, well, I might write my calendar every day. Here's how my day is going to go. Here's where my week's going to go. And it's all this forward, moving forward, projecting forward, versus, hang on, just stop. Let's do an assessment and look at what's going on. This is like the chiropractic adjustment. You don't just get on the table and get cracked. People come in, crack my neck, crack my back.
Crack my back. First of all, we're not cracking anything.
I'm not cracking anything. I'm going to do an assessment first. I'm going to evaluate where you're at. If I'm working on a neck or a shoulder or whatever the area of your body, I want to sort of get a sense of where you are now relative to where you were the last time or when I first met you.
Or if that pain in your neck is actually coming from your knee rather than actually your neck. Or your hips or your lower back.
Yes.
Like if the pain is coming from that specific spot, or if it's connected to something else.
Correct. Which is why, like we said earlier, sometimes the sensation is not necessarily the whole story, and likewise, it may mislead you. You go, oh, my foot hurts, and it's actually coming from a nerve in your low back. Mm-hmm. You're not having foot pain. Well, but why does it hurt in my foot? I know, it hurts right on the big toe, or hurts on the back of the calf, or hurts, in a certain area. And let me show you, trace it right to the area of your spine. That's the nerve. If I stick a needle or put an electric stimulator or, chemically do something to that nerve, you're going to go, ow, my toe. It's like, okay, now do you believe me? Right? And it's really simple.
It's so funny how we're all connected like that. Yeah,
and you study anatomy and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like the wires run through here, and if anywhere along the wire I tap in and I call you from outside on the telephone pole, you think I'm calling from downtown. And I say, hey, I'm calling you from downtown. And you go, oh, well, how do I know any different? And if you look outside and you see me, you go, wait, no, you're not. I see you. Okay, so now you have a better understanding of the anatomy of the situation. Mm-hmm. And this is what I mean about digging deep, getting more intimate and more related. I believe that the human body is the garden, it's the manifestation of the universe, like the template for how to live. If you understood how your anatomy and your physiology worked, and you start to look out at the world that way, you recognize that all of those bodily functions, the functions of the liver, the functions of the heart, the functions of the lungs, the function of the nervous system, are all represented in society. There's a perfect template, it's a perfect match. It's like they say, about as above, so below. How it is in the universe is how it is down here on Earth, with subtle variations. And again, that's where we want to really pay attention. We don't just swallow the medicine and assume that it's all going to work according to somebody's design or intention, but we want to look at the bigger design and the bigger intention that's already here and it's always here, and how well tuned into that am I, so that when I hear gibberish or garbage, I know the difference because I've already got it imprinted inside of me. That perfection is already there in your body, in your physiology. And yes, you get sensations. We said they can mislead you, but they can also be your best guide. Mm-hmm. And you have to have a way of stop, check. Well, what am I checking this against? Or what am I comparing it to? I don't have a previous encounter. This is my first time. Well, great. Okay, but make a note of it. And not just how you feel. Like, oh, this feels so wonderful. Because if everything was like that, people would all be on drugs and, wouldn't be achieving anything in life. Because they're just laying there feeling good. Oh, I feel so good right now. It's like, sorry. That's not a real life. Like, life is out there interacting with people and, like I said, creating.
Yeah. And there's duality. There's all of the emotions of the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, what is something you want to leave everybody with as we sign off here in this experience? And I kind of want to do like a part 2, a part 3. Like, I want to dive into more of this life in the garden analogy, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like, 2020 has had a lot of people really dig up the gardens that we've had, and a lot of those gardens were full of dead plants and weeds and plants that we didn't even know who put those plants there and why is that plant in my garden.
Yes.
So now, like, that this year has been like a lot of digging, a lot of maybe dynamite in those gardens, and I think 2021 is going to be a lot of finding the seeds and planting the seeds that we want to grow our lives with.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So what's something that you can just leave this audience with, and then we'll come back. We'll come back for another conversation.
I liked where you were going with that, and if I could just add to your analogy, it's great to get the seeds. It's great to get the soil and the sun and the climate and all that stuff kind of figured out. That's the stuff of life. Not to belittle the seeds, because the seeds are what has this infinite potential.
Yep.
Right? Like
the DNA.
Acorn contains within it an entire forest of oak trees, right? Like, whoa, mind blown. But what I would really like to leave people with is, especially as we move out of 2020, we're going to complete 2020. And if we want to complete it powerfully, what that means to me is, in order to set us up for an amazing 2021, or the next year, or the next year, or the next year. One of the things I've been hearing people talking about is a great reset. You know what? We are the reset. You are the reset. You can reset your entire life at any time, at any moment. It just takes the desire. And when you get in touch with, when you tune into and listen, really listen, like with every fiber of your being, to what's important to you, the things that are not that important will fall away, like the chaff. Mm-hmm. The things that are important will rise to the surface. But it takes something. And I've been saying since, I think, end of 2018, that 2020 is going to be the year of perfect vision. And I was being kind of cute about it, 2020 vision. But I kept saying it, I kept saying it, I kept saying it. And I really believe that that's what's coming to pass now. Not that I'm so powerful and I created that for the entire planet, because
Well, I think you're also tuning into the collective, because I've heard that in
that's
a lot of places.
That's more what I would be quicker to agree to that.
And you are everything too. Like, we are all, like,
and we're all connected.
We're all one.
Yeah, like
we're all one.
network.
Yeah, we can get into that, but we don't have.
We'll do that.
Don't
on
have time right
call,
now.
I would love to do that. But what I want people left with is this great reset idea is not something that's happening out there.
Or to you.
Like, they're going to do this and they're going to do that and that. From now on,
we have to wait for
like
the stars to align.
Because they said so. You know what? This, especially here in America, this is a country of the people, by the people, for the people. We are the country. It's not the government. It's not elected officials. If it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go on our watch, that's our job. We're the boss. So you're responsible for how things go in your life, in your business, in your community, in your family, in your country. But maybe you haven't been tending like a responsible gardener. And we get distracted. Shiny objects, and you were talking about Instagram or whatever, TikTok's all the rage. And I was like, oh my God, I spent a whole hour on here. Yeah. Think about is that an hour away from? What weren't you present to that would have lit you up and had you be on fire, and probably, well, not that, TikTok doesn't have some kind of value, but, you probably would have not spent an hour on there.
Yeah.
And you probably would have created something really amazing.
Yeah, or prepared yourself and tended to a different area that would have supported you in the path that you're trying to go, and the fruit that you're trying to grow.
Exactly. So as you're looking forward at 2021, you can look at it as a continuation of 2020 in the timeline from the time you were born till this moment in time. Or I'm suggesting you can stand at the end of 2021 with all of the accomplishments of 2021, all the accomplishments of your life, and things that currently are not there. But in your imagination, through that facility of your desire, and a spiritual awareness or attunement to the real truth, that we're given imagination and creative capacity in order to fulfill. And if you stand at the end of the year and you see all these things already complete, no matter where you are in the course of the next year, you will find yourself closer and closer and tracking directly at that target being fulfilled, like a laser beam. You have that capacity, so you can imagine, as I said, being the reset. It kind of takes, like as a chiropractor, somebody comes in once a week, 3 times a week, whatever, once a month. Every time I see him, I'm going to check him before I adjust. I'm not going to make any adjustments unless I have some sort of an assessment. Mm-hmm. Where are you at now? Where am I heading? Mm-hmm. If we operate like it's already a done deal, like that's where we're going. And then if we don't look at, well, where am I today? What's going on with me? And am I on track? Am I aiming or moving in the direction of that, invented target? And it's important to recognize it's invented. It's not given to you. Nobody's going to come and give you the answer to your life, the purpose for your life. And I don't believe it's something you discover. I think it's something you create. And then when you surrender to the creation, like I am the creator of the results in my life, and you surrender to that, you won't find yourself wasting time on TikTok or Instagram, maybe quite as much, and you will find yourself more of the time in action, in the ways and the areas that move your game, move that ball down the field towards that goalpost that you created, that you said was important, that you are happy to give your life to or to surrender to. People have this idea about surrender as being a bad thing. I'm weak. I'm inadequate. I had to give up. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is looking for and discovering and creating the flow.
And allowing the flow to take over.
Yeah, and then just moving with it. And that's like the surfing part of it is like once you catch that thing, you just want it to go forever.
Surrender, yeah.
And it's not going to. It's going to only take you as far as it can go, and then you got to go get another one. And instead of make up your mind like, oh, I'm no good at this, like how do I get back in the queue? How do I get back into that flow again, or how do I create it?
Yeah.
So that's why we're here. We're
Beautiful.
here to create a flow.
Yes.
And I thank you for being the cause of this moment, this opportunity. I get your commitment to see me win and the people whose lives that I touch. And I want you to know I'm committed to expanding that and really reaching a greater audience and a greater number of people who are tuned into this stuff already.
Yes.
Or who would like to discover what more there is that could be had.
Yeah.
In a simple conversation, or, I don't know how long we've been going here.
A little over an hour.
Okay, yeah, so, hopefully it was an hour well spent.
Yes.
For everyone.
Definitely.
And hopefully we piqued your interest to tune back in and check back in.
So where can people find you if you want to reach, people to reach you to reach the people? Where can they find you? Your website.
I do have a YouTube channel called Life in the Garden.
Life in the Garden. Rodney Ruge.
And Rodney Ruge is a funny sounding name, but
Dr. Rodney Ruge.
Rodney Ruge. It's
and your chiro.
I'm a chiropractor.
What's your website? Chiro
Torrance,
website.
and it's called Back in Action.
Backinaction.com.
Bodyworks.
Okay, backinaction.bodyworks.com if you want chiropractic.
Correct.
It's in Torrance, California. If you're not in the area and you want to get connected, go to the website. You can call the number on there. And then my mom, Violet, she's the office manager and massage therapist, and she's an amazing creator, artist, all kinds of things. She'll answer the phone, and you guys can get connected somehow. Go to Life in the Garden on YouTube and subscribe.
Yep.
And we'll have some more. We'll have more of
We're
these.
We're gonna create some more good stuff.
Thanks, Rodney, for being here with us. Dr. Ruge, love you very much.
Pleasure.
Thanks for your contribution to the planet and all of the amazing ideas that you have and the healing that you do.
That's awesome.
Have a wonderful day, and thank you, listeners, for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Okay.
For more guided meditations, soulful conversations, and conscious content launched weekly, please follow the Magic Lighthouse wherever you listen to podcasts. See you next week.